all you want to do is hide away under the duvet, not be in the world, and just you feel absolutely terrible. That could be shame. That's how it felt for me. And in this video, I want to take you through the difference between shame, toxic shame, how to support yourself, and what it means and where it potentially comes from. Hi, I'm Chantal from Unfold Your Freedom, and shame was a big part of my life for a long time, and it came from childhood. And I never understood why I had this constant feeling of never being enough, of being completely flawed, irredeemably flawed. I could never do anything right. That's how it always felt. So no matter how well I did at school, no matter how well I did in things, no matter how many times various people told me I was such a wonderful person and child and all that, it never made a difference. I constantly felt terrible, that I wasn't worthy, I shouldn't be living in this life. And I wonder if you recognize any of that. Because it took me a long time, as I said, to understand that. And then it was interesting when it was finally pointed out to me, there was shame upon shame, which is paradoxical, because then I felt ashamed that I had this shame, that I had been living my life like this. What would people think? You know, will they want to be with me? Am I lovable? Will I be rejected? Will I be abandoned? So all these things come through my videos, because a lot of it, this is why I talk about trauma, and goes right back to childhood trauma and how you deal with things. It's important we talk about it. It's important to become aware of it. It's important to seek help, to support yourself, because why would you want to live like this, or, you know, for the rest of your life? I know I don't. And I just recently had a bout of shame. And I realized in a way I needed to experience that despite the discomfort, despite thinking all this work I've done on myself, all the healing, here I am again. But what was different was I hadn't felt it for a long time, and I knew how to pull through it a lot quicker. But the discomfort was just unbelievably awful. So I'm going to give you some of my symptoms, what happens for me, and some of them you might relate to, some not. So, you know, if you feel comfortable, share, because it is about talking. It's about taking away the taboo around this. So this time round wasn't quite as bad, but when I was younger and also being blonde and lighter skinned, so when I blushed, you could really see that I blushed. So it was always, you know, embarrassing, you know, when you're that age and you might not want to show someone that you like them. So that's different again. But this, and you could always tell, bright red. But when I used to finish shame, I could feel the heat starting to creep up my neck. I could feel it coming, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. So embarrassment, shame on all of that. How could I not be coping? Then as I said, my face began to flush, and it took time to pass, but then also my heart would start beating, and I'd get a bit clammy and sweaty, and then I'd go blurred. I could feel myself numbing out, blurring, moving away, and all I wanted to do was just go and hide and not be here anymore. And what would the person think? So I just felt my heart was pounding so much that you would be able to hear it, you'd be able to know. So I went completely frozen. So not only did I freeze in my body, but I wanted to disappear. I wanted to go into flight and run away. And as I said, hide. But you somehow keep going, but there's this constant feeling in here, and you don't enjoy life. Nothing feels good. So, and it's a secret sense of devastation when you feel like that. You know, it's not something you can talk about. Who do you go and share that with? Who do you want to tell that? Because there's this deep inherent, as I said, belief. You don't want anyone to know about it. Because if they did, they wouldn't love you, because you believe you're unlovable. I know I was led to believe this as a child. My father used to, unfortunately through his drinking, he would, now perceived truth, this is my reality, he'd often say to me, your face, you're pulling a face, and that would give him the excuse to go and drink. And I never understood what face I was pulling, but I carried that. There was something wrong with me, something wrong with my face. I pulled it without knowing what it was, because he never explained to me. He didn't want to explain. He didn't need to explain what that was. So I had this constant fear about, what face am I pulling? You know, what am I doing here? So that's one experience I had. And it controls you. It really does control your life. So in comes again that sense of perfection, needing to get it right. So it's very, very hard to learn to do anything new, because you're scared of that judgment and criticism. And how this happened recently, it was a lead up to numerous things that had happened. But the last thing that triggered me was I was being critiqued. Now remember, there's a difference between critique and criticism. Criticism's negative, putting you down, and whereas critiquing is saying, hey, this is what you've done and this is how we can improve it and make it better. Like my memoir coach has said to me, and because I'm writing my memoir, which is bringing up all sorts of interesting things, including shame. She says, what I'm doing is I'm polishing the diamond for it to shine. I love that. And then she said, when she's going to go through it, is like, I've done the first draft, just dumped it. Now I've done the second draft. She's now going to critique it because it's a layer upon layer. It's like doing art, excuse me, or something. You've got to learn. You've got to start somewhere. I suppose it's like building a house. You build the foundations. It's layer upon layer. Now, building a house, obviously, you've got to know what you're doing. That's a bit different. But I really like that. So that's what critiquing means. But I heard it as criticism. I triggered straight back into that shame. I went straight into, I'm not good enough. See, I didn't know, I wasn't perfect. How can you be when you're doing something completely new? Rather than seeing it as excitement and learning and getting out there, it's very hard when you've been through trauma or childhood trauma, a constant put down, constant negativity, living like that all your life. So you prefer not to. You find it hard to be adventurous and getting out there. And as I said, I knew logically. So again, there's the logic, it's the mind. So no matter what mindset I had, no matter how many affirmations I'd say to myself, no matter the logic was that I knew she was holding me and critiquing me, my body, see, it was a visceral reaction. My body went straight into, I'm wrong. I'm inherently wrong. She won't like me anymore. She'll drop me as a client. She won't support me anymore. It was just amazing that here I am with this experience, 61, lots of therapy, and boom, there it was again. But it's why I was able to finally do this video and write about it on Substack, is because I can do it. It's a very different feeling, completely different. I don't even feel shame sitting here talking about the shame. That's a big breakthrough for me. So shame is about believing, it's about who you believe you are. Sorry, it's about believing who you are. You don't see anything inherently good about yourself. It is so ingrained in your identity, as I said to you, it dictates you, and it's long lasting. And that's the difference between shame and toxic shame. Normal shame, it's called, is you do or say something that goes against your values, what you believe in, and who you are. There's a shame in that. You feel it's more than embarrassment. But that doesn't last long. It's done, it's over. Whereas toxic shame is long lasting and it's over years and years and years. And you are constantly anxious. You're going to be exposed as a fraud, as being defective, even though, as I said to you before, you don't know how or why. Why do you feel that? You don't know. And that's what takes time to do, layer upon layer upon layer. And that's why I have become a counselor, therapist, to support others. But I've got this beautiful way of supporting people, which I've done myself, is writing yourself a love letter to help you turn that around. Takes a bit, but it's really well worth doing. And it's also very hard to stay in the moment, to stay with it, to stay with the discomfort. So how do you do that and support yourself? Who do you have around you? Particularly if you can't see your therapist. See, I couldn't see my therapist, she was too busy, but I had enough support around me for my partner, a couple of good friends, and the things that I need to do for myself that I was able to come through. So it like you get blank, you get light, no matter what you say or do to yourself, sorry, you feel lightheaded. So these are all the different things that can come up. As I said, eyes become blurred. Sorry. So I know I felt like I was out of my body in a way, watching on. I'd separated myself, which is a pattern I'm used to, is disassociating myself from myself. So how can I stay connected? How can you do that? Body, mind, connected, and staying with it. It's really, hang on, I've just gone blank. So this happens every now and again. In the past, I would have gone down that shame. Look at me, I'm not doing this right. What are you going to think? This is what it is. And that's a freedom in that. I want you to feel there's a freedom in that when something like this happens. You're not a failure. There's nothing wrong with you. This is normal. This is part of life. So how does it come? So what's the difference? So what's the difference between shame and normal shame or toxic shame? So it's always present in your life. As I said, shame, normal shame isn't. It creates a real deep sense of inferiority and inadequacy. Whereas with normal shame, it's just there, bang, gone. And it makes you feel defensive and sensitive to criticism. See, criticism. And of course, there's going to be criticism in our lives. That just happens. But you can't differentiate between critiquing. So you get defensive. I was immediately on the defense, but I had to really hold myself because all I wanted to do was run away. And that's part of my avoidant attachment thing that's come from childhood, that I want to run because that will protect me from being abandoned, rejected, further abused. So that's how it feels. I run. I was ready to let it all go and move away and not finish, in this case, my memoir. And the negative feelings also last a lot longer. You feel them with greater intensity, and they more often than not originate in childhood. And what this does, it can lead to depression and aggression. So I used to express myself with aggression, my tone of voice, how I was. It's because it was to protect that identity that I wasn't good enough, that I was so vulnerable and sensitive. Perfectionism comes in, disorders, addictions, all sorts of things come in. So if you get triggered, do seek help. And because these are the things that we do to support ourselves. There's a shame around that. But it's about how can you support yourself to get out of the shame, to look at how are you actually doing, I'm going to say it, abusing yourself. I did a lot of that. I became perfectionist. I was depressed, as I said, aggressive. I would eat as comfort. So fortunately it didn't translate into an eating disorder, but boy, I could have easily done that. So again, there's no shame around that. And it affects all areas of life, your personal life, your relationships, your career, if you run a business, anything that you do, it affects all of that. So how can you overcome shame? And remember, it is a gradual process. It does take time. I found it needed to become a practice. I had to really, really work on it. I had to, like building a muscle, I had to really change that way of thinking, that neuro pathway into a whole different way of thinking. It took time. And I had to keep on working out, why was I feeling this? How can I build that? How can I turn that around? And here are some things. Okay. To get you started, what you need to do is, and this is really important, is to recognize, acknowledge that's how you're feeling. That's number one. That's with so many things in your life. Acknowledge and accept. And this is how my meditation teacher taught us when you go into meditation. Now, sometimes meditation is not appropriate, but what he'd say was, name it. So sometimes you can't even name it. So just say, I'm feeling, name it. So I feel shame. Acknowledge that you're feeling that, accept it and let it be. And somehow that actually starts helping you. This is how I'm feeling, it's okay. This is how I'm feeling, it is okay. And do that without judgment, which is hard. So you've got to do it without judgment. Again, that takes time. And as you're doing that, it's really important to start cultivating, developing a sense of self-compassion and love, and just being understanding, be kind with yourself. You didn't want to feel like this. It actually, I'm going to say this, it happened to you. It happened to me. But it's up to me now. It's up to you to actually change this around. You have the choice, and you have the choice also not to do anything. But why would you want to stay like that? That's how it was for me. Give yourself a hug. Learn to embrace these imperfections. Do that. It's not easy. Begin to challenge those negative thoughts. Why? Really? Write them down, turn them around. I feel like this because I found for me, once I could do a because and understand, I go, okay, I no longer need to feel like that. So that helps reduce those deep feelings of shame. Seeks professional support and help, as already mentioned, and get to know what your triggers are. So that's it. You're triggering, you know what you need to, you know that if you go to that place, you might be triggered or be with that person. So two things is learn how to be with them if you need to be around them, or it might be that you have to remove yourself completely. So that's one way. And then set healthy boundaries around that. How can you support yourself with boundaries? Knowing the difference between them and theirs, yours, your story. It's not their story. And do something creative. I've only recently started doing creative, and I do an art jam for healing, and I'm going to put that link in because we talked about shame just recently. And I'm loving it because it's really helping me step out of my life. I even did some while I was in shame, which really surprised me. And it became, I can go into my own space, I can come down here, no one's around me, and I just do it. And I am going to share it with you. This is what I created. Couldn't believe it. Loved it. Had incredible fun with that. And then I did another one where I just started writing words that I want to feel and did some neurographics and just did that with fun and pleasure, and what a difference it made. So how can you support someone going through shame? So here's some practical ways. Create a safe space for them so they know they can come and just be where they need to be. They feel comfortable and that they can share with you without feeling they're going to be judged or criticized. Hugely important. And you can also begin any conversation or make them aware that you are there for them, that you want to know, you are here. You are here for them. You're going to listen and actively listen. Don't jump in. Don't try and make it better. Allow that person to talk, because often I've found, and particularly with the training I've done with the counseling, it's person-centered. Often when you talk, you come to your own conclusions, you come to your own realizations, and you can just be there to hold. Whereas with a counselor, what I do is I be there to hold, but support you, take you that little bit further, and perhaps help you reframe, challenge, and do things like that. And it's important to let them talk without interrupting, because that can also create shame on someone. See, I'm not worthy to listen to. See, there you go. Here we are again. What's the point? Walk away, never share again. So don't offer solutions or advice unless they ask you for it. Because again, sometimes you just don't want to hear that. You just want to talk. And keep offering your reassurance. Just keep saying them, I'm here, I'm here. I'm here with you. With unconditional acceptance. And that's not always easy. Unconditional acceptance. Don't rush them. Just let them talk in their own time. They might go round and round and round in circles. That can be frustrating, but just let them be there. So don't rush. They need to share, and encourage them to seek professional help. And just as we end, remember, it is not your role to fix them. It really isn't. And often, and particularly men, I'd like to hear this if you are watching. Women, we are taught to we are just taught to be there and to, what was I going to say? To try and make it better. I suppose, anyhow, don't worry about that. But just remember, you don't need to fix them. We don't need to make them feel better as much as we want to, because actually it shows us about our discomfort, not theirs. And I talked about that in the depression one. I will put the link in there as well. All you need to do is simply be there. Be someone who is there. But remember to set your boundaries too. It's a real powerful way of supporting someone's recovery. If you wish to hear more, subscribe. Click on the notifications. I've got plenty there to offer you through trauma, meditations, how to love yourself, all those things. Because why wouldn't you want to lead a beautiful, happy, exciting life despite these moments in time?